y'all, Emily here from fairairmusic.com. And today we're going to be mixing a song with just the stock plugins from Pro Tools. I've actually never done this before, so it's probably going to be quite challenging, but I figured, I should be able to at least get something decent out of just stock plugins. Now, I know there's not a lot of good ones that come with Pro Tools, but the basic things that we need is an EQ and compression. So whether you're just starting out or seasoned professional out there, I think that this is something that can only help us. One, if it's all that we have, then we might as well learn it. Two, I think it's good for someone like me who's been mixing since 2012. I should probably be able to navigate, work around just a couple of plugins and get a decent sound. So this is going to be a challenge for me. I think it's going to be fun. I think it will be fun for you and as well as a good practice. Always good to keep those skills up. So I'm excited. Let's jump in, see if we can get a decent mix out of this. All right, so I got a session started here and there's no plugins on it yet. We're going to do all that together. It's just kind of a basic song, not much going on here. I'm not going to be using my mix template as I said, but I've got a mix bus and a print here, and we've got our input monitor so that we can hear it back. And we're just going to start mixing. I think what I'm going to do first is just kind of listening to everything, see what's playing, and if things are at a proper level or not. So we'll just probably start at a chorus here and see what's going on. Okay, so I don't think there's any need for these toms. So we're just going to hide and make that inactive. All right, well, at least we can hear all of the instruments now. So what I'm going to do first, just mute the vocals. Don't need them right now. Just want to find a balance with the music. So let's just start with the drums here. I don't like my overheads very wide. Room, that's fine. So let's get a good sound with the kick out and kick in. All right, so bringing that overhead in with the kick, it's making it kind of sound like it's just falling apart a little bit. So we have a mono aux, and this will just be kick. So what I'm going to do is send, let's see, we'll start with bus 9 here. So this will be our kick. And we're going to send both of these to that kick. And if you want to send multiple tracks at the same time, if you're on a Mac, just hit Shift Option, hold that down, and then select where you want them to go. So let's see if that's going through. Okay. So what is kind of a better way to do this is to have these solos safe. And then that way I can solo this. So now let's go up here and add our EQ. We're just going to be using Avid. Go ahead, put that on there. Also, taken out. Let's see, 4 dBs, probably go a little further on that. Maybe make this a little wider. On the overheads, to get rid of that, just that funk, that kind of, I don't know, it always seems to kind of mess up with your overheads when you've got your overheads and a lot of other elements mic'd up in your drum kit. That frequency range it just doesn't blend as nicely. So I like to pull that out anywhere from 300 to 500. You just kind of have to see, and that's, a pretty big cue here. So we're actually kind of covering all of those frequencies. But let's see what that sounds like in and out. So it really helps the kick. And I think what will help the kick even more is if we put in a high pass filter here. So now I'm going to go back and do some EQ on the kick here. I may actually want to put a gate on that because I feel like when we're flipping the phase, it's picking up those snare hits. So let's get a gate going. I'm actually going to leave the phase how it is for now. I feel like we've kind of corrected some of that stuff with the overheads. Guess now we'll bring in the snares. I want to listen to the snares by themselves just to see how they're blended. Not that great. I'm usually not that big a fan of snare bottom, but I feel like with that kind of shuffle beat with this song, we need it. So hopefully, I guess I'm going to go ahead and make this into a group as well. It's just not a very good recording. So see what we can do with some EQ, since it's basically our only tool. There's not many stock plugins that come with Pro Tools. let's try this out. Now I want to make an overall drum group. And to select, while skipping tracks, hold down Shift and Command on Mac. Now that we've got those selected, we'll go back to Shift Option, and we'll make all those go to the drums. Okay, so let's check that out. Okay. And this is so we can control the overall sound of the drums. So yeah, I feel like it just smooths the snare out a little bit. And we're going to go back and check out, add some compression on those in just a minute. But I'm just trying to get the overall sound feel balanced. So now let's see what it sounds like with a little compression. And we're going to go with this one. This is the Avid's Pro Tools version of the 1176, I believe. So that's fast, I'm guessing. So is that fast? I do not like the way that sounds. So let's just go with a regular old compressor then. So let's get a chorus going. see where we are now from where we started. So we can definitely hear everything. Everything's kind of opening up. We still got, a little ways to go, but I think that's sounding better overall. Now the next thing after getting the music a little bit where I want it, I want to go over here to the mix bus and do a little processing on that, a little overall shaping. So, it's kind of hard. I'm used to doing a little bit of mid-side EQing, and we don't have that option when we're just using stock plugins, but that's okay. We are just going to, do the best we can. And, I think it sounds better, so far. So I guess we're on the right track. But now I want to go ahead and bring in some of these lead vocals.
So to quench these fires, and I am always wanting something more. But I cannot ignore these desires, and I cannot afford to quench these fires, and I am always wanting something more. So I surrender, but I cannot ignore these desires, and I cannot afford to quench these fires, and I am always wanting something more. So I surrender now. And I am always wanting something more. So I surrender now. But I cannot ignore these desires, and I cannot afford to quench these fires, and I am always one. But I cannot ignore these desires, and I cannot afford to quench these fires, and I am always wanting something more.
So I feel like I need another compressor, but it's not going to be that one. It's just adding too much of something I don't want. So we'll go to this clean one.
I cannot ignore these desires, and I cannot afford to quench these fires, and I am always wanting something more. So to quench these fires, and I am always wanting something more. So I surrender. But I cannot ignore these desires, and I cannot afford to quench these fires, and I am always wanting something more. these fires, and I am always wanting something more. To quench these fires, and I am always wanting something more. So I surrender, but I cannot ignore these desires, and I cannot afford to quench these fires, and I am always wanting something more. So I surrender.
All right, so now let's check out the harmonies here. I've just got them in the third verse and bridge.
This is not the way, this is not the way that it should be. This is not the way, this is not the way that it should be. This is not the way, this is
Pretty close. I like to get the raw audio at my sweet spot of -18 dBFS full scale.
This is not the way, this is not the way that it should be.
I think we're there.
But I hear you say, but I hear you say that it will be.
We're close. That sounds pretty good. I'm probably gonna pull those down just a little bit.
This is not the way, this is not the way that it should be. This is not the way, this is not the way that it should be. But I hear you say, but I hear you say that it will be.
So whatever I do to one, I'm just gonna copy over to the other one because they're pretty much the exact same thing. And to be honest with you, I'll probably just do this because he's doing his own harmonies. So, I mean, if it's the same vocal, might as well try out the same settings that you have for the lead.
This is not the way, this is not the way that it should be.
And it works. Now, what I haven't decided quite yet is if I want these hard panned, or do we support the vocal like closer to the vocal?
This is not the way, this is not the way that it should be. But I hear you say, but I hear you say that it will be. This is not the way, this is not the way that it should be. But I hear you say, but I hear you say that it will be. This is not the way, this is not the way that it should be. But I hear you say, but I hear you say that it will be.
That might work. I don't know. It's kind of your taste. I know there's lots of different things, and we haven't even brought in the last two here. But let's go ahead and do that. See if that changes anything for us. That's starting to sound really nice. Really nice. We can probably start to add some effects. And one that I want to do is try to create a room sound, like an ambient type of just effect that I can send all the instruments to so that we can get that kind of room sound. Kind of helps glue things together because we're not going to be getting that glue from the stock limiter. So let's try to do that. So what I'll do is come down here and start setting up some. So what we'll need to do is I like to send my effects, my room effects. I like to have that sent pre-fader. And we'll take one from the drums here. I'll just kind of get everything pushed up a little bit. I wonder if I can... I don't do the bass, usually. But I definitely want to put it on everything else. Including the harmonies. And even a little bit of the vocal. I think that would work really nicely. And this may be overkill at first, but let's just see what we got. So I know that our choices are going to be a little bit limited here.
Story I would write. But I cannot ignore these desires, and I cannot afford to quench these fires, and I am always wanting something more. This is not a story I would write. If I wrote this story, I'd give myself a battle I can fight. And if you only knew me, you would run. But you see straight through, even past the man I have become. But I cannot ignore these desires, and I cannot afford to quench these fires, and I am always wanting something more. So I surrender. These desires, and I cannot afford to quench these fires, and I am always wanting something more. So I surrender. But I cannot ignore these desires, and I cannot afford to quench these fires, and I am always wanting something more. So I surrender. This is not the way that it should be. But I hear you say that it will be. Okay.
everything just smothered. Like, it just feels like it's smothering everything.
But I cannot ignore these desires, and I cannot afford to quench these fires, and I am always wanting something more.
All right, so where we kind of stand now is worked on all of the tracks individually, and I'm really liking where it's going with just, these basic plugins that we've had. And I'm actually quite surprised. There's, a few things that I feel like I'm not able to accomplish, but overall, like, this sounds really good. And it's probably just because I haven't had the practice of being so limited. But I really think that we're getting somewhere. I think now I want to go and start tweaking on the mix bus here just a little bit. See if I can just get it open a little bit more without having any sort of mid-side processing that I'm used to. And now, I've kind of have a little bit of a limitation with that. But let's see what we can do to just kind of clean things up on like the lower end and maybe the low mids. I feel like it's just getting a little bit masked up in that area. So let's see what we got.
But I cannot ignore these desires, and I cannot afford to quench these fires, and I am always wanting something more. So I surrender. But I cannot
So, yeah, I mean, I think that sounded pretty good, right? Like, it sounds way better than what we started with. One thing that I want to check out is maybe, and I like the effects, even though, like, there's not really much to work with there either. But this isn't a song that really needs a lot of vocal effects. And so I just want to see, well, let's try putting a compressor on here. And I believe you've got the side chain feature on these. Okay, yeah, right here. So I want to see maybe if we duck that with the vocal, and since there's already a bus going on there to the delay, like, let's just use that, right? So anytime that a send that's a copy of your vocal, so this is your vocal, the delay, it's a copy of the vocal because we're sending that to the delay, but I also want to send it to have this trigger, this compressor, so that we're ducking this effect, and so at the end of the phrases it'll be released, and when he starts singing, it's going to compress. So let's see if that is beneficial, and if it's not, then we'll get rid of it. But I'll put that in solo just so you can hear what it's doing.
But I cannot ignore these desires, and I cannot afford to quench these fires, and I am always wanting something more. So I surrender now. But I cannot ignore. But I cannot ignore. But I cannot ignore these desires, and I cannot afford to quench these fires, and I am always wanting something more. So I surrender now. But I cannot ignore these desires, and I cannot afford. But I cannot ignore these desires, and I cannot afford to quench these fires, and I am always wanting something more. So I surrender
So really, I like it. It cleans it up. It it just brightens his vocal up a little bit. It pushes everything through sound a lot clearer in the mix. So we'll keep that on there. Other than that, I don't know. That sounds pretty good. There would be some, automation moves throughout the songs, especially with the banjo here, because I don't really want it too dominant anywhere other than probably that second chorus is where I would want it to come through a little bit more, maybe on the outro there. So we would automate a couple of things, but as far as like our mixing with, stock plugins, I think we've done that. So let's just do a little before and after. So let's go ahead and bypass everything here. So this is everything in bypass.
But I cannot ignore these desires, and I cannot afford to quench these fires, and I am always wanting something more. But I cannot ignore these desires, and I cannot afford to quench these fires, and I am always wanting something more. So I surrender now.
Not bad. And, this was just doing this for the first time. Now, I know that a lot of people who are just starting out, brand new to Pro Tools, brand new to EQ and compression, but this is what you can do. I know that I've got 10 years of experience and kind of knowing what to do, but I'll say, even having to pull these old things back up, I had to, because I don't know, they just seem a lot slower than I'm used to. But, knowing, fast and slow attack and release, and it's a little different. It's, Universal Audio has definitely made the 1176 very user friendly, and you can tell, very quickly that 7 is, fast and 1 is slow. And you can hear it right off the bat what it's doing. These, not so much. You kind of have to, play with them a little bit. Same with the EQ. I've gotten really spoiled with being able to click on a frequency and solo that and listen to it and see if I want to pull it out or not. Also, mid-side. I obviously depend on that a lot more on my mix bus, mixing into that. But you can mix with just these stock plugins, and I really like that heat. I'm glad that that's available now instead of an extra or an upgrade fee or something like that, like it used to be. But anyways, I think it sounds pretty good. I am, again, I'm listening through my SonarWorks. I have that set up to where you're not hearing that, so our interpretations may be a little bit different, but sounds pretty good to me. This is where I would start doing some automation moves and then send it off to a client to see what they would like, any sort of revisions on that. But I liked it. I liked the challenge, and it was challenging. So if you're just, doing this with stock plugins, I'm telling you, like, what you're doing is great. That's where you should start. You should really, understand these basic plugins. If that's all you have, then you are going to go far and your skills are going to develop a lot faster. I guarantee you that. The only thing that I really wish that I could have, I think would really benefit, actually maybe two things. One is that limiter, just something, that's going to barely like tap on those peaks. I just didn't like what that compressor was doing for the most part, but we got something that works pretty good, and we're kind of just tucking everything in there on the end. And also a mid-side EQ. That would have been really, really nice. I really think that would have opened up this mix a whole lot better. There's still a couple of little things that I wish that I could just pull out on the sides or in the mids there on the overall sound. But yeah, like if you did that, if somebody was just working with a couple of different kind of plugins, an EQ and a compression, maybe some parallel processing there, a little bit of saturation, I would think that would sound pretty good. I hope that it translates well, through YouTube and how things get, overly compressed through streaming devices. But I think that sounded pretty good. I had my SonarWorks on there and sounded pretty balanced and pretty good. Through my monitors here. But anyway, so that just goes to show you that you can get a pretty good sounding mix. And if I sent that off to mastering, they'd be able to, clean that up a lot more and bring up the levels and limit that a little bit better. But totally happy with that. It can be done. I was a little bit iffy about just using Avid's plugins. I will say a couple of notes. Not a fan of the 1176 that they have. Really don't like that at all, actually. I've seen a lot of people use it when they do, videos like this, or that they're trying to use more Pro Tools plugins. It's not for me. Other than that, I think everything, worked to my taste. Really liking the Heat. I think if you've got that on your tier of Pro Tools, I just have the, Pro Tools perpetual license, even though it's not really mine anymore. I have to pay an upgrade fee every year for it. But yeah, mixing with just Pro Tools stock plugins, if you know what you're doing, you can get a pretty decent sounding mix. Thanks so much for watching, y'all. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and hit that thumbs up, and don't forget to hit the subscribe. It's totally free to do that. That way you'll be informed every time that I put out another video kind of like this one. Also, head on over to my website, faireairmusic.com. You can download all of my different templates, ones that I use on every single mix, just not this one. I've also got a mixing course on there that you can get the multi-tracks to practice on your own. All right, y'all. Thanks so much for checking out this video. We'll talk soon.